All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the PeopleSoft Emerging Tech Chatbots webinar from SpearMC Consulting. We're going to get started here right on time. We've got a lot to get to today. I'm really excited to show you guys some stuff here with chatbots. And in fact, we've got some special guests here today as well. So very excited about this webinar. Just some quick housekeeping. The presentation will be sent out after the fact. You'll get the slide deck. And also note that with the webinar window, you should have an ability to ask questions, or even if you'd like to chat, you can chat with our panelists who will be available to answer any of your chat questions. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask, go ahead and ask those questions during the time we've got today. We will try to get to the questions during a Q&A session at the end. If there's a pertinent question, we might jump in and answer the question before that. All right, so a little bit about SpearMC. So SpearMC, we're an Oracle Platinum partner. We've been so for a while, and we, basically, in a nutshell, we are PeopleSoft. We do all PeopleSoft work. So whether that's hosting PeopleSoft managed services on Oracle Cloud or cloud infrastructure, whether it's industry or functional expertise in the different pillars, whether it's training on the technical or functional side, services like PUM updates and testing services. We can sell the software. I mean, really, we do it all in the PeopleSoft stack. I mean, that is really our main source of all of our work. And many of you know us because of that work on the PeopleSoft. We're constantly and sponsoring different pillars and the different national conferences, et cetera. So that's a little bit about us. I doubt many of you don't know about us because you're on this webinar, but that is a little bit about us. We've achieved certifications on the PeopleSoft side and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and we also do work on the Hyperion Cloud EPM space and OBIE, but that is a smaller portion of what we do. Really, PeopleSoft is our main area of expertise, and that's what we're talking about today. Really across the country, we've got offices all around the country. We started in San Francisco in 2004 and quickly expanded across the country. Our latest offices are really to serve the East Coast, Pittsburgh and Washington, D.C. Although I'm personally in the Seattle office, and I'll introduce myself in a second, but we are around the country, and we have international clients as well. All right, so this is me. I'm Cameron McClurg. I'm out of the Seattle office, managing director. I joined SpearMC a little bit over 2 years ago. Previously to that, I was a customer of Oracle, and before that, PeopleSoft. I've been a customer, and I've been in many of your shoes for many, many years, trying to figure out, okay, what new technology are we going to pursue? What are we going to roll out? How do we effectively do that with proper change management? How do we do it in a way that's not going to cause us a lot of support and maintenance work on the back end, supporting all of our users? So all the work that I do with SpearMC is really focused on implementing easy solutions that are easy to maintain and support. My personal area of expertise is of course, with PeopleSoft, but I also run the EPM side and the cloud infrastructure side. So running PeopleSoft on cloud infrastructure, and I've learned quite a bit about chatbots, and going to share some of those learnings today. And most of what I've learned is from my man Al here, who's going to introduce himself. So go ahead, Al.
My name is Al Kanairam. I've been in the PeopleSoft space for over 20 years now, and then I got to work on the chatbot areas, the last year, and then so I was working for another organization, and we had built the chatbot from ground up. That was prior to PeopleSoft released the chatbot, and I've been working with the chatbot, PeopleSoft chatbot since February, and then as Cameron mentioned, we learned a lot then in going through that particular process, and then we are going to share the experience of deploying PeopleSoft chatbot on ODA. Thanks, Cameron.
All right, great. Thanks, Al. And we do have some special guests here today as well. You may know these guys, Matthew Visto and David Bain have graciously agreed to join us today and be available for Q&A and to speak to any specific questions that we may have about chatbots. I will give them some questions at the end of the session today and get some answers, and feel free to submit some questions that you'd like to ask at the end for these guys. And if we have the time, we'll get to those questions. And by the way, if you haven't already seen it, next week is what we're calling, or it's called PeopleSoft Week, and there's a bunch of sessions done through Quest, and both these guys will be presenting next week on people tools, roadmap, etc. So definitely check it out and take a look for those sessions next week. Today's session really about chatbots. We're looking for really all PeopleSoft users, whether that's functional or technical, whether it's on the HCM side or financial side. Today's session is for you to learn about chatbots, to get a feel for what's already available, what's coming, and if you want to consider maybe rolling that out for your organization. This is not training in depth. We won't be covering details about how to do installations, how to turn everything on and do all that. We do cover quite a bit today, but it's a webinar, and so we got to go pretty quickly and cover it at a high level. We have a longer form training coming in July, and I'll show you that here in a second. So we have a bunch of live virtual trainings that we are offering in June and July. Here's a list of them. You can see that we're covering the gamut in terms of Kibana and analytics. We've got things like query, the decustomization of PeopleSoft, whether that's page and field configurator, activity guides, dashboards. And then at the very end there, you see the one on chatbots. And so July 16th at 9 a.m. These sessions, what we're trying to do here is we normally do in-person sessions, and these are kind of a longer form. They're on-site. We send trainers out. We do a custom session for each of our customers, and that works really well. It's done. We've done great with that over the years. Many of you know us because of training, but it's in the current world with COVID, we've had to adjust a little bit, and we are offering a lot of the same content, but in shorter formats and in the live virtual setting. And so because that, we're trying to do it in small bite-sized chunks. A lot of these sessions are actually just half-day sessions. And so these are actually starting at a very low price, $295. So definitely check it out if you're interested in any of these topics and want a little bit more than what you'd get in a webinar format, but kind of enough to kind of get going on your own. Check these out. I really am excited about these half-day classes. So definitely check it out. And here's the link, and you'll get this in the session notes. All right. So we're going to take, before we get going, I want to kind of hear from you a little bit. So we're going to take a couple of poll questions, and I want to hear from you really about what you're mostly interested in. So the first question I'm going to launch here for you, and you can go ahead and just answer this question right on your screen. You should be able to see now a question about what interests you most about chatbots. All right, so we have chatbots maybe already and are just want to learn more about them. Maybe you have a specific use case for chatbots that you want to consider building. Maybe you're interested in just learning and keeping up to date with the current functionality technology. And perhaps maybe there's some of you out there saying, I have no idea what a chatbot is. All right, so I see we've got some answers here trickling in, and let me go ahead and give it another second or two. And let's see how the answers come out here. All right, so let's see. So let's share the results there. And all right, so we can see that many of you are just wanting to take a look at the latest technology, which is great. We're gonna cover that for you today. Some of you have a use case for chatbots. That's fantastic. I think I'll try as much as I can to offer some thoughts on potential uses. And I know some of you, it looks like some of you actually have a chatbot already, and that's fantastic. I'd love to hear from you guys, maybe offline, about what's working well for you and what your lessons have been learned. I know I've learned a lot in doing the setup on our side and getting all working. We've learned quite a bit from it, so I'm interested in hearing from you as well. All right, let's go to the next question. So let's see here. All right, the next question. For those of you on 9.2, what people tools are you on? And of course, some of you are going to be on financials and HCM. So go ahead and answer. You can answer multiple times here. So if you're on multiple, go ahead and you can answer that. If you have only one, just go ahead and answer it that way too. All right, so fairly even distribution here. Let's give it another couple seconds. All right, so let's take a look at that. So kind of evenly split between 856 and 857. Some are on 858, and a few are back on 856. Now, why this is important is we're going to talk about this. If you want to implement chatbots, you got to be on 857 at a minimum, okay? And so you'll see that at least I should say, if you want to leverage the delivered chatbots from the delivered framework that PeopleSoft delivers, Oracle delivers, you need to be on 857. And we'll talk about that more in a second. All right, let's go on to the next one. So for financials, let's start with let's start with financials. Which image are you on? 1 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 33, or 34 or higher? All right. For sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's take a look at that. So it looks like we've got, again, a lot of people in the 21 to 33 range. What my reason for chunking it up this way is that the requester bot on the financial side actually comes in image 34. So that's why I'm asking about that. So you can take a look at that from a selective adoption perspective. Of course, there's a lot more that comes in 34 and 35. So you should consider, if you don't have a get current and stay current strategy, that's something you can talk to us about. We're helping a lot of organizations transition to that more modern way of looking at PeopleSoft. So, but again, with selective adoption, you can take a look and pull in the requester bot from image 34, and I'll mention that again later on. Okay, lastly, HCM. Let's take a look at that. This is our last poll question. Same thing, 1 to 20, 21 to 25, 26 to 30 this time, and then 31 or higher. All right, I'm seeing pretty good numbers on the 31 or higher, and that's good. All right, so let's go ahead and close that. So all right, so about a quarter of you are on 31 or higher. And why did I pick 31? Well, that's because that's when the absence assistant chatbot comes out in image 31. And again, same thing. You can consider if you're on 857, 07 to be exact, or later, you can pull the selective adoption for absence assistant from image 31. So great information. We're going to go ahead and now close the polling and get back to our agenda. So, all right. Okay, so today we're going to talk through kind of history of conversational interfaces. What does that mean, a conversational interface? We're going to show some demonstrations of the chatbots and kind of an overview of what's under the covers. We're going to look at the setup and kind of what is happening technically. Although we're not going to do a deep dive on that, but we will cover it briefly. And then, like I said, we're going to have a Q&A that we'll be able to discuss with our esteemed panelists. All right, so let's dive in here. All right, so if we take a look at a brief history of conversational interfaces, I want to ask you a question. Which of these do you recognize? Okay, so here's one. If anybody knows what that is, that's a telegraph. And that was one of the first ways, of course, to communicate by wire information. And so one of the first things. fast forward to roughly the 50s. Anybody know what this one is? This is called the IBM shoebox, and it would do arithmetic using voice. So this was a really, really early on being able to do arithmetic simply by using your voice. Eliza, this one, I got a kick out of this one. This is Eliza from MIT. And what you could do with this, and this is, I think, from the 60s as well, what you could do is you could ask it a question like something like it, or Eliza would ask you a question as a modern psychotherapist. Is something troubling you? And you could answer, well, men are all alike. And then the response is, what is the connection, do you suppose? And it's really interesting because if you didn't know better, you think it's actually hearing you and listening. It wasn't at the time. It was really not very smart, but it was really, really revolutionary at the time to be able to provide a response back to what you were saying. And it made you feel like it was hearing you. All right. And think about more like pop culture. Maybe some of you recognize this little graphic. This is from a game called Oregon Trail. And it was a text-based game, and you could actually write in what you wanted to do, kind of a choose-your-own adventure. Unfortunately, most of the outcomes had you dying of dysentery, which is always why people know about Oregon Trail. But hey, it was a good shot at some of the initial chance of using text to actually play a game. There's also a few pop culture references. Let's take a look at one of these. Anybody recognize this? And of course, Hal says, I know you're going to try and disconnect me, and so I can't allow you to do that. So of course, the moral of this video is, once you turn on chatbots, you can never, ever turn them off. Of course, I'm kidding. But let me see if I can do this again. I'll show you the next one here, and we'll see if we can actually get it to actually listen to the video. All right, I don't know if you guys can see this or not. All right, and I'm still having problems with my video or audio. Hold on one second. All right, we're gonna have to stop that. All right, take my word for it. That's a funny video about Saturday Night Live and people having a tough time with Alexa. We'll have to move on. Obviously, my audio didn't work on that one, and I apologize for that technical difficulty. Trust me, it's funny. Go check it out yourself. It's a funny video of people trying to interact with the Amazon Alexa and having a difficult time. So anyway, we'll move on. Unfortunately, my funny video didn't work, but that's all right. We'll go ahead and move on. All right. So what's a conversational interface? Conversational interface is kind of a generic term. It's really a user interface for computers that emulates a conversation with a real human. So instead of having, the user having to learn something by navigating through a menu or entering the right information in the right field, conversational interface really provides an opportunity for the user to speak naturally and for the machine to learn. So it actually shifts the responsibility to the machine to learn and to adapt to the human and not the other way around. So what's the basic flow of a conversational interface? We've got the interpretation first of the intent of the user, and that's using something called a natural language processor, NLP. What the machine tries to do is it tries to match that to a dialogue flow, or tries to get your intent into a flow. It goes and then retrieves information according to this flow and getting the information. And it takes that data and information and it translates it back into a conversational response, back into the user. So that's the basic flow of any conversational interface. And this could be true for Alexa. It could be true for Siri. It could be true for Oregon Trail or anything else. All right, so what's the goal of the conversational interface? I mean, why do we have them? Well, really one of the main goals is to reduce friction. And when we talk about friction, what are we really talking about? Well, let's take a look at an example of how a user would enter sick time into PeopleSoft. Well, they'd start with, finding a link to log into PeopleSoft. They'd log in, they'd open the navigator if they know how to do these things. They'd navigate to self-service. They'd, find time reporting. They click on report time. They'd click on request absence, select absence type of sick. they'd put in a date from and a date to, and they'd finally submit it. So what does that need? Well, it actually requires a lot of training, right? You got to train users how to use PeopleSoft. And traditionally, as implementers of PeopleSoft, this is what we had to do. And, we could be really, really good at training. We could offer some really great guides and some really awesome live virtual training. But at the end of the day, the onus is on the person to learn and the application. and that's fine from our perspective in doing our live virtual trainings to you guys, but for your users, that might not work so great, okay? All right, what's another example? Any internal group that answers repetitive questions. So for example, an end user picks up the phone and calls for help. This could be something within a PeopleSoft group, like a procurement group or an HR group. The questions they asked, the helper person has to understand the question. The helper has to then open PeopleSoft and navigate. They'll then ask for required information like an employee ID, a user ID, name, etc. And then they'll respond with the answer. And they have to repeat the whole process if it's not what the person was intending. This process can take a while, and of course, the last step of this is the end user wondering if they're ever going to get their 10 minutes back. So if we think about this, this is really, this is what we're used to, but it's really not great customer service. And it's really not, it's actually doing two things. It's not giving the user what they want. At the same time, it costs money to staff these people to actually do this repetitive question and answer type of work. And this happens all over the place in any internal organization or any organization that supports your users across your organization. Okay, so if we think about the changing demographics and expectations of the workforce, we think about the fact that there's the millennials and Gen Z are really about a third of the workforce at this point, but very soon they're going to make up over 50%. And as we know with that, I mean, not only will employees accept these functioning conversational interfaces, they're actually going to expect them. And that's a key thing to point out and to understand, that really we're talking about an expectation that will start to occur with individuals across the board. It's already happening with Alexa and Siri on a personal level, but it's going to start coming into the corporate setting as well. Okay. So let's get in and talk a little bit about what PeopleSoft and Oracle is doing to deliver these conversational interfaces, and of course that brings us to PeopleSoft Chatbots. So right now, PeopleSoft Oracle team within PeopleSoft has delivered 3 chatbots, 2 within the HCM space, so Absence Assistant and Company Directory Assistants, and then on the financial side, a Requester bot. There's a whole lot more coming. And I have some slides to talk about the ones that are coming in the future. But for right now, these are the ones that are available. And I'm going to be demonstrating both the Absence Assistant bot and the Requester bot today. All right, so what are the requirements for this? Well, first thing is you need this thing called Oracle Digital Assistant, ODA. And you're going to need to subscribe to that. And we'll talk about that in a second. You're going to need PeopleTools 85707, patch 07 or higher. And you're going to need the functionality out of PI 31 on the HCM side or 34 on the financial side. Please note that there are some changes coming to the way these requirements and how you're going to license this. I'm not going to get into the details of that today, but there will be more to learn about this next week when some of the announcements are going to be coming out about how some of this is changing with how you're going to access and pay for these chatbots. Okay, so what did PeopleSoft and 857 deliver, 85707? Well, it delivered configuration changes in PeopleSoft. It delivered an installation that you would put on the web server, and it also delivered skills to then, or a framework to bring in skills into the Oracle Digital Assistant. So let's dig into that just a little bit. So on the PeopleSoft side, we're going to have these new things called app services, which are web services within the context of integration broker. There's both core services that are reusable components for all chatbots. So for example, like security authentication. And then there's individual services that are respective to individual chatbots. So for example, extraction of absence information or requisition data. And I've got a little screenshot of this here in a second. Also has some setup pages within enterprise components. And then of course the chat client. That's in the PeopleSoft space. So this is an example of the application services. Here you can see a service that you can navigate here within web services inside of the integration broker. And you'll see that there's a service here called employee absence balances, or get employee absence balances. And if we dig into that, we're going to see this kind of guided process registration wizard to take you through all of the details about how this is all set up. Now, this is all delivered. As I pointed out, this comes in the application image. And so you simply just have to take that in and simply just turn it on. Of course, this is how you would build your own as well within here, these app services, but I'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so we talked about PeopleSoft. On the web server, there's a web SDK that has to be downloaded and installed on the web server. And then Oracle Digital Assistant has to be turned on. It has to be subscribed to. And skills are then downloaded currently from the PeopleSoft Home folder. And there's also a template skill that you can download and utilize if you want to build your own. Again, as I mentioned, there's going to be some changes to how you are going to download and procure these skills. For right now, the 3 that I mentioned are all in your PeopleSoft Home if you have gone to those PI images that I mentioned previously. Okay, ODA, what is Oracle Digital Assistant? It is a cloud platform service that's available to all customers, whether you are on-prem or already on the cloud. It does not matter. You can subscribe and leverage this cloud platform service called Oracle Digital Assistant. And within that, you'll see skills that include intents, entities, and dialogue flows. And I'll talk a little bit through this as we go through some of our demonstrations. So you've got PeopleSoft and you've got Oracle Digital Assistant. So what's ODA doing versus what's PeopleSoft doing? ODA is your natural language processor. It's what's going to interpret the words that are typed in or spoken into the chat client. It's going to interpret those into natural language. It creates and maintains a channel that connects PeopleSoft into the chatbot itself. It has conversational logic. It has the dialogue flow. So as I say this, I want it to go to this. And then if I say that, I want it to go to that. That's the dialogue flow. And then there's, of course, the connectivity into PeopleSoft. On the PeopleSoft side, PeopleSoft, of course, has the source data. And so really using application services, that's what connects into that source data, all right? And so that's the key on the PeopleSoft side is these application services. And, of course, it has the user interface for accessing the chatbot. It also manages the messages. So as your dialogue flow in ODA pushes you to one thing or another, which I'll show you in a bit, there's going to be messages that you're going to manage in PeopleSoft. Okay, so let's get in and take a look at this. All right, so let's, all right, here we're going to open up the absence bot first. This is on the HCM side. Of course, we can have it on both sides if we're in unified navigation. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in hello. And what you're going to see here is that it actually has a contextual answer to me. And you'll see that it says, if anything goes wrong here, please contact a real person. And you can call this number and email this thing. So let me pause just a second and bring us back there. So the point here is I have a contextual answer. Now, PeopleSoft's not going to, of course, deliver that contextual answer to you, but you can modify what comes from the delivered skill set, and you can modify that message on the PeopleSoft side. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Okay, so once I get past the hello screen, the chatbot tells me it can do 5 things for me. It's fairly robust in terms of what it can do. And so here I'm going to select, okay, yep, so I'm showing that it's contextual. And I'm going to go ahead and select view absences. And by clicking on that, it knows that me, as I'm logged in, my employee ID, knows that I have a few absences already submitted. And I'm taking a look at this one that's in July. And I said, I want to see the details. Well, I submitted this previously, and currently this absence in submitted status, all right? And let's say I don't want anymore. I want to cancel it. All right, so I'm going to cancel it, and it says which one do you want to cancel. I'm selecting the one from July. I'm going to click on cancel, and it's asking me questions. Okay, what's the reason? Is there a specific thing the reason why? Because maybe that's something you want to track. No, I'm just saying the trip was canceled. Do you have comments? No, I don't. And then a final confirmation. Do you want to proceed with this? Yes, I do. And it says, okay, selected absence for date 7/1 to 7/8 has been canceled successfully. And with that, I am done with my process. And you'll notice that as a user, I didn't really need to learn anything about this. I just simply need to use my own language in talking with this bot. And nobody in HR is actually involved in this process. Now, we're going to show again another example here where there's actually an approval process, and that's because in our PeopleSoft instance, we don't have to approve cancellations, but we do have to approve absence requests, and so that will simply just submit that over to an actual person to actually then go and approve that. So let's take a look at the next example. All right. So in this example, we're going to enter something that is a little bit different. In this one, I'm going to type in something like, I want time off, okay? Now, if you think this concept of the language of time off at Christmas, time off doesn't appear in PeopleSoft HR, right? That's not a thing, time off. But it understood the concept of time off meant you're requesting an absence. And so it just automatically kicked you into the flow, the dialogue flow of an absence request. So when does your absence begin? I entered 12/15. Notice that I didn't have to put in the year. It just knew what I was talking about when I said 12/15. It asked me the next question, when does it end? And I'm going to go ahead and type in 12/30, okay? And it asked me, okay, what's the reason for this? Well, I want vacation. Do you want to provide partial day details? No. Do you want to select an absence reason? I'm going to take personal time off. Would you like to provide comments? No, not needed. I can if I wanted to, but to confirm, is this what you want? Do you want to submit this request for 88 hours of time off? I'm going to click on yes, and your absence request has now been submitted for approval, okay? So by doing that, I, as the user, had a better experience in being able to submit my request than what I would have had to do by learning how to do that in PeopleSoft. But I was able to just use my own natural language to actually do that process, okay? So very easy process. All right, let's take a look at the next one. And this one, we're going to, actually, I think this is a time off one again. Hold on. Yep. So let me go to the next one. All right, this one is interesting. Now, this one, I wanted to show you the audio, and apparently my audio is not going to work, and so that's okay, but I'll speak through it. So in this case, you'll notice that the form factor is different. Why? Because I'm on a phone. I'm on my iPhone, and as you know, or as you may know, PeopleSoft can render on the phone just as easy as it can on a desktop because of the fluid interface. So by coming in here, I'm going to have the ability to come into my tiles. And on this one, I would have loved for you to hear it, but I'm actually speaking into my phone. So I'll mimic what I was saying in this process. Okay, so I'm opening up PeopleSoft, and this takes me into the same login screen as I would have if I was on a desktop. Being on an iPhone, it can remember my ID and password, so I'm going to do that. It's going to just log me straight in. And I'm coming into a screen that only has my two assistants, my page, the absence assistant, employee assistant. And here I come to this area, and by using my phone, I don't have to type it in. I can simply speak into it, and I say, Marcus is killing me. Marcus is my boss, all right? Many of you guys know Marcus Bodie at SpearMC. He's my boss, and you'll notice that automatically what we have programmed here is that whenever I use the word Marcus, the chatbot absolutely knows that I need time off. Every time you say your boss's name, it knows you need time off. Now, of course, this is a silly example, but I'm showing you how easy it is to actually do something like this, where you can tell it and train it to pick up on words and actually perform actions. Okay, so when do I want the absence? I want it today. When is it going to end? I'm going to end in a month from now, 1 month from now. And it recognizes that. It understands 1 month from now is actually on, what was it going to be? June 22nd when I did this the other day. All right, no, I don't want to add details. You know, I'm going to enter his personal time off. I'm using my phone for all of this. I'm being able to use my natural language, even speaking into it. Do we want to have a month off because my boss is killing me? Yes, I do. I need a month off. And there you go. The absence request has been submitted. Okay, again, silly example, but the point is that you can teach it to do these things with your words. All right, so let's take a look at that, how we would do that. So, oh, and before we show that, I'm going to show the financials one. So this is a requester bot. This one I would say is not as robust as the absence assistant bot, but I'll show you really quickly. So you can do things like, where's my monitor? It understands that you're looking for an item description. It says, okay, can you please enter the item description? You type in monitor. It actually does a lookup of all of your requisitions that had monitor in it. So it's using a search algorithm. It's finding specific requisitions that had it, and it tells you the details about that specific requisition. And here you can see that I now have details on when that was expected to be delivered. Okay, and I can see, again, I can customize this message to say, if this is not what you expected, please contact purchasing. Very easy to add that in from a messaging perspective. Okay, let's keep moving here. I see I'm going a little long, so I'm going to try and pick it up a little bit. All right, so future chatbots. On the HCM side, you can see chatbots in the payroll, benefits, recruiting, and I've got all these in more detail in the appendix, so you'll see these all on the slides. Financials, a bunch on the financial side too. And I'm going to skip this. Again, check out the deck. It has more details on all these. Okay, I want to show how you actually train Oracle Digital Assistant. So this is really important. So I'm going to show this little video, and let's take a look at how this is actually going to work. So here I'm going to open up Absence Assistant Chatbot. I'm going to type in a word that it doesn't actually understand, okay? And I'm going to say something to the effect of help, I believe is what I type in here. Need help, okay? And what you'll notice is the response says, sorry, I do not understand your input, okay? Now, one thing to point out here is that these chatbots are not what you would call machine learning, autonomous machine learning, okay? Here I'm going into ODA. I'm finding that there's an entry greeting that's associated with specific words. And I could go down here and I could look at the different examples of what these are called utterances. And I would notice that help was not in here. So I'm adding help into as an utterance into this specific area as an entry greeting, and nothing else is needed. And now you can see help is now along with hello and a lot of other words that it's going to find. Okay, so if I switch back now to my chatbot, you're going to notice that I can now type in help, and now the response is going to be different. Now it knows that I'm actually trying to do an entry greeting, and now it kicks me right into the entry greeting, which is hello, John Patterson, blah blah blah. Okay, so that's how easy it is to teach these things, but you do have to teach it yourself. It's what we call guided learning or assisted or manual learning. It's not autonomous machine learning. Here I'm going to do one says I want to get away. All right, little I guess that's a Southwest logo, right, or motto. It says I don't understand what you mean by that. Okay, so I'm going to again go over to my utterances or my intents on the ODA side. I'm going to find the request absence, and I'm going to type in, I don't need to type in the entire phrase. I just need to type in something that we'll use to find that specific word. So I put in get away as one word, and I'm typing in get space away as another set of words. Both of those are now registered as an utterance within the intent of request absence. And you'll notice now when I log it or move into the right area, you'll see that that's now included as an utterance within this intent. And now if I come back, it's immediate. There was no time delay. I didn't monkey with the video. I simply just said, I want to get away. And immediately it already knows that I want an absence request. Okay, so that's how easy it is to train these things. It's very, very robust and easy to use. All right, this one I believe is the same thing. Okay, let me move on. All right, so here, looking at these utterances or within the intent, I have the entry greeting here, and by clicking on that, you can type in the help. So that's kind of what I just showed. Let's take a look at how easy it is to find a message, some of the message in the dialogue, and make a modification. So here, instead of looking at the intents or the entities, I'm looking at the components, which is basically the code that manages the dialogue flow. Okay, so in here, I know I'm looking for entry greeting. That's the name of the intent. So I can look for that entry greeting in the code. I found it. It's very easy to find. And here's where it's calling out the message set and message number from PeopleSoft. Well, you guys know, if anybody knows, you should know this, that all these messages are stored within PeopleSoft. So if I move back to the PeopleSoft side, I can find this message set number, absence management chatbot. I go to message number 152, and I can find this message saying, hello, I'm a virtual assistant to help you. And I made a modification to personalize this to include a phone number. I included an HR support email address. And you'll notice that I have this easy out, right? If anything goes wrong here, go ahead and contact a real person. I don't want to just put them into an infinite chatbot loop. That would not be good. So by doing this, I allow people to have an easy out and to take them into a real person. Okay? All right. That is it from a demonstration purpose. Let's dig into a little bit of technical details. So I'm going to bring in Al now. And Al, go ahead and unmute yourself, and let's walk through some of the technical details. We've got about 8 minutes or so.
Okay, I'll be brief, and then I'll
be brief, yeah.
Yes. And then the technical, work is on 3 different areas. The one is on the web server, and this is the PR side, and then Oracle Digital Assistant, and then the PeopleSoft PR again. And then on the next slide, please. This particular one, it is in the people books, and then this chart, the flow chart walks you through the the steps. The first one is deploy web SDK in PeopleSoft to render the chat client. The chat client is what Cameron has been demonstrating. That is the absence assistant, that particular web UI, and then PeopleSoft had delivered the Chatbot JS, that is a web SDK, and then what we have to do is we have got to create an external site and then deploy the that particular JavaScript SDK, and then that's all that is used to render the web UI. And the next one is we need to create a user within PeopleSoft, and that is used to communicate between ODA and PeopleSoft. And then the one which follows, just follow the yellow highlights, and then because we are doing it for the first one, and then so we are not developing the skill, our own skill, and then we are going to deploy that the skill that's delivered by PeopleSoft, and we are going to deploy the skill on the ODA side. The first 2, and then the top 2 are on the PeopleSoft side, and on the left-hand side, now we are going to go through this particular one, and the work is done on the ODA part. And in the ODA, the optional part is whatever Cameron had demonstrated. For example, he added additional utterances to train the bot, and so that is, if for the first time, if you are deploying it, we can skip that one because let's work with what is delivered, and then followed by the configure the skill settings, and then here we will be putting in IB URL, and then that is how ODA will communicate back to the PeopleSoft. So that is a place where is a placeholder there, and then we have got to update and put in the IB URL. The next slide, please. And then followed by the channel, and then the channel is basically the communication medium, and then the only channel right now that is available to us is the web channel, because the only web client and then UI is available to us. And then we select the web, and then we deploy, we route it to the skill that we have deployed. In this, for example, absence assistant or the requester part. That is so far what we are doing on the ODA side. Now that we created the channel, we link the channel to PeopleSoft. And then when you create the channel, it provides an ID, like an unique identifier. So that we come to PeopleSoft PR side, and then we plug in the channel ID, and then in the bot definition, and then that is how the link is established. And then the rest of the things are all certain. The other one is we have to deploy the tile onto our home page. So once you set it up, and then so that when we land on the page, and then we'll be able to see the either the requester bot or absence assistant bot, the tile. So then we can launch and then test it. The next one, next slide, please. Okay. The previous one I went over very quickly, and then we do have a seminar coming up, and then live virtual live training, and then we cover in a lot more detail. And then in the interest of time, I'm just quickly going through this particular one. And this particular chart provides the flow of the request, and then on the left hand side, and then you would see the web UI, and then it's very hard to read, and then vacation balance is what we typed in, and then that is an utterance that gets interpreted as an intent as absence balance, because you are expecting to know the absence balance, and then that is it is associated with the entity of vacation. And then if you come down on the right hand side, the Node.js container, and that is where the PeopleSoft custom component is deployed, and then it gets interpreted, and that is where we put in the IB URL in ODA, and using the IB URL and then using that particular service, because the dialog flow gives the additional information. Using that particular information, your request is sent to IB, and then there is some authentication happening, because PeopleSoft have provided built-in authentications. It's all very secure, and then it's authenticated, and then the call is made to the REST API call is made to the database. And then the next one, next slide, please. Okay, so from there, and then the database, and then the return, now the response from the database, we found out that the 72 hours is your balance, and then it follows the chain back, and then it comes to the custom components, and then from there, dialog flow, probably formulates in the conversational response, and then it is displayed onto the our web UI, and that is the flow back. The next one, please. How do we talked about deploying the delivered one. If you were to develop the skill from the scratch, and then there is a template skill provided by PeopleSoft, and then so the steps are detailed in the people books, and then you would create the basically the application services. You got to conform to certain standard. PeopleSoft have published the requirements for that particular one. It is nothing but an application class, and then you would publish that particular application class. And that one, the rest of the steps are all similar, because once you develop your skill based on the template skill, you would import the skill into ODA, and then the remaining setup will be the same. But you are responsible for creating the intents, and then writing the dialog flow code, and then the training that particular skill. The next one, please. The required skill is you need to have understanding of the Oracle Digital Assistant, and then on the PeopleSoft side, and then you need to understand the newer framework, application services framework, and then and also the Chatbot framework. And this is the pro tip from Cameron is you basically you can peel back. If you are from HCM side, you can peel back the absence assistant one, and then if you are from FSCM, and then you can peel back the requester bot, and then see how they are constructed, and then you can follow that particular method to build your own. And then knowledge of JavaScript definitely helps also in debugging and go through all the process. Application services. We know that there will be updates and then delivered in subsequent PI releases, and then we need to manage that particular one. The ODA part of it is still a question mark, and then probably Cameron will cover that one, and then so little more. This is kind of a there are no tools as such at this point in time, but I'm sure something will be coming forth, I guess. And so that is the first one is PeopleSoft side. We know how to manage that one, and the ODA side is still work in progress. The next one.
All right. Thanks, Al. Yeah. So I think let's it's a good segue to our question and answer session. So I know, from a lifecycle management, how do we implement something here in a sustainable way and that allows us to take in future updates? So why don't we transition to our question and answer session? So Dave and Matthew, if you guys want to unmute yourself, why don't we start with that? Let's start with that question, which is, what are some best practices from a lifecycle management perspective? What can be done to support the future chatbots from a lifecycle management?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is Dave. First, thanks very much for inviting us here. And I thought that session was really great, really informative. The easiest way to answer the life cycle question is to point out that we are going through a transition right now. We're going through a transition where we used to deliver the skills, or where we currently are delivering the skills in the PUM environment, to making them available in the skill store, in the ODA skill store. And that's a big step for us, and it really has a lot of benefits for you. What this means is that you'll be able to take skills from the skill store, download them, put them into your ODA working environment, and you'll be able to use the extensibility toolkit that's provided by ODA to add your own intents, entities, utterances, and skills. So basically, we let you use this extensibility toolkit, so your changes are kept external to the changes that we deliver. We're going to start versioning our skills in the skills store. So we'll have let's just hypothetically, we'll have a version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. And our versions will very most likely line up with the PUM images, right? We haven't quite figured out exactly how we're going to number these and so forth, but they will likely line up with the PUM images. And then you'll have the same selective adoption approach with the skills that you have with the PeopleSoft. So you'll take a version 2, say, and you'll be running version 2, and we'll release version 3, version 4, and so forth, along with PUM images. And when it's time for you, when you're ready to move to version 5, you'll be able to do that. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be perfectly easy, but since all of your changes are going to be kept external at a different layer through the extensibility toolkit, all of the changes, like your utterances, will come over, all your new entities will come over. There might be a little bit of merging within the skill. There may be a few things that, making sure that some of your changes don't conflict with some of the changes that we've made. So there will be a little bit of work to get the new versions in, but certainly not as much as migrating all of the changes or trying to work all the changes in manually yourself. And that's coming up. These changes that I'm talking about are coming up very, very soon. We hope to have them out within the next couple of months.
And I'm assuming, Dave, best place for that would be probably the PeopleSoft information portal to get more information on that?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you'll see the old documentation out there on the PeopleSoft information portal. But I wanted to make sure that you and your audience here was kept up to speed with the current thinking and what our plans are.
Great. Thanks for that. All right. Next question is a very common question. I've heard this asked and answered many times, but I'll ask it for the purpose of everybody's listening. In HCM, of course, there's 2 separate bots. In financials, there's 1. Will we eventually see one consolidated HCM bot and one consolidated financials bot? And then follow-on question, could we eventually see one bot that covered both HCM and financials in a unified navigation type setting?
The answer is right now we're targeting our skills specifically on the business functionality, and we're doing that more well for kind of 2 reasons. Number 1, because it's easy for us to get them lined up and get them released, and also they drop into the PeopleSoft application very easily that way. So there can be a on a home page that's focused around HR. We can have the absence bot and the company directory bot and so forth, and put them directly on components. The future, though, will be to move more towards a what they call a digital assistant. So instead of a skill, it's a digital assistant. And the difference between a skill and a digital assistant is pretty simple. It's just that a digital assistant has multiple skills. So at some point, we will combine these skills and we will put a PeopleSoft digital assistant on top. But we don't have a specific time frame for that, and we don't have a specific roadmap. I think one of the things that we really want to do is we want to see our customers start implementing these and see how our customers start building on their enhancements on top of these chatbots that we have. I know it's going to be very, very common for companies to put in things like just your basic FAQs, right? Some places to go for information, maybe links to get some other internal information. And clearly, you know, some links outside of the PeopleSoft application. So we want to see how some of our customers are doing that. And once we see that, then that'll give us a little bit of more guidance in how to merge these all together and come up with a universal bot.
Okay, that's great, Dave. I think that's a good segue to the final question I'll ask you guys, which is, so there are a bunch of chatbots that are in the roadmap, and you guys have announced those. Where would an organization want to spend some time if they wanted to, you know, they had some ideas about a use case, but it wasn't on your list of roadmap? What would be their next steps? Do you think that they should go ahead and start building those out, or should they really be working with you guys to have you guys build them? Last thing people want to do is build something to find out that it's delivered within, you know, 6 months later or something like that. So what suggestions would you have for a customer?
Yeah, so my thought on that is keep informed of the roadmap. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of explaining what the roadmap is through our planned features and enhancements. So keep your eye on that. And then I would also say that I would expect virtually everybody to come up with their own custom skills, just because it's the nature of the chatbots, right? When you implement a chatbot in your organization, one of the nice things about ODA is you're going to get a report, and you're going to get to look at what people are asking for. So if you go out there after the first week that it's implemented and you see 20 people have asked, how do I change my password? Or, you know, just a basic question like that, then you can think, well, you know, that maybe that's a question that I want answered. Or you think about going to your help desk. What are the most common questions that your help desk gets answered? We might not be delivering those specific questions, but those are things that can be of very, very high value to your organization. So I think it's, when you look at what we are delivering those things that integrate with our applications, or are deep into our applications and provide value to get to our applications. There's this whole other side of chatbots that is, how do I get this best to work within my organization? And I think that those are the things that that people should be focusing on. So I guess I'd answer, let us focus on the PeopleSoft integration. You focus on those things that make your companies run smoother, and then look at our roadmap and decide if what we're doing works within your time frame. And if it doesn't, then that's when you would get into the PeopleSoft.
That's great, Dave. I appreciate that. And there was one, I lied, there was one question that came in, and I was going to ask you guys as well. I know we talked about it earlier today. Campus solutions currently, and I'll answer on your guys' behalf. You guys can supplement if you'd like. There are no chatbots delivered for campus solutions, and at this point, the belief is that the effort will be placed on chatbots on the SaaS campus application, and not in PeopleSoft campus solutions. Anything you guys want to add to that? I'll take that as I'll take it as a no.
That's the current plan. The focus for the campus solutions is on the student cloud products right now, right?
Okay, and that's maybe a great opportunity to build your own for students. So there's a good opportunity to do that. Okay, great. We're at the end of our time. I really appreciate the panelists. Just a few things to point out here. Chatbots takes a bit to set up. It not only is in PeopleSoft, but it actually requires, the ODA subscription and getting all that set up. Unified navigation, Kibana, delegations, a lot of the stuff, you get a demonstration database, and a lot of stuff, isn't, configured completely thoroughly. Well, we've done it. We've combined HCM and financials, and we are offering this to people as a service to allow you to come in, take a look at these things, play with them. We're going to include some consulting time with that too, to actually walk you through this stuff, show you how to do it. And we're offering this in a pretty competitive price here to include that one-on-one consulting. So we're excited about offering this to you guys, and hope that you take advantage of taking a look at some of this demo. Of course, you can do this all yourself, or you can just kind of work with us, and we'll kind of help you get access to this stuff and look at it, and then you can of course transfer it back into your own into your own environments. All right. So lastly, I'll just point out we've done a bunch of webinars. We're kind of at the tail end of some of the webinars that we've done. We've got a bunch out there. In fact, we completed the Unified Navigation this morning. They're all going to be here on this recorded webinars link. So go ahead and check that out, that link right there. All of our recorded webinars over the last 2 months are going to be there, and they're totally free for you to take a look at. We are offering a deeper dive training. So as I mentioned before, Chatbots 101, we are getting into the details. This is a half-day class, and we're offering all the details. Al will be speaking on terms of installation. We're going to be covering things like app services, how to make modifications to delivered skills, how to get started with doing your own custom skills. Again, half-day class, and we're offering a discount code for anybody that attended this webinar. So you've got it right there. Sign up use that webinar 0529 code, and you'll be able to get signed up, and it's really a pretty cheap price to get going with Chatbots. We do offer a bunch of other trainings, as I mentioned as well. Here's a timeline of our Envision, Query, and Pivot Grid. Decustomization, things like page and field configurator, work centers and dashboards, activity guides, and forms and approval. Again, half-day chunks, so very easy to consume. And then PTF and lease administration. So those are our trainings that are coming up. I really appreciate everybody attending today. As I mentioned in the appendix, we have more details on all the chatbots coming in the future, as well as additional references that I used in putting this webinar together. Appreciate you all coming a couple extra minutes with us. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Give me a call, send me an email. Happy to talk to you and share with what I've learned through my experience of learning chatbots. And we're happy to help you guys if you're interested in implementing chatbots or doing some of your own stuff. So with that, we'll end the webinar. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you soon.